Hi, Becky. How are you this morning?
Hello, good morning. I am good, thank you. We're not going to talk about the tech.
Well, that's what happens everyday life. It's just one of those triggers, isn't it, that can possibly send you over the edge.
Certainly is. But if you're prepared for it,
planning. So today we are going to talk about a topic that I would say is a taboo topic. And the reason why we're talking about it is because it happens to most women and it probably happens to most men, because indirectly, if you live with a woman who's going through this, they're experiencing it too. And this topic is hormones, and knowing who you are at your normal level could possibly help you understand, what's going on with your hormones. Who are you at your best, and when you're not at your best, what's going on, what's triggering you. And we're hopefully going to give you some hints and tips, of how to recognize these symptoms and what you can do about it. So I don't know why hormones are a taboo subject, because it happens to everybody. I remember when I was going through a bout of hormonal imbalance, and I was going to work, and I'm a sharer, and everyone was, and then when I started talking about it, just the person opposite me, they were going, oh yeah, oh God, I get that. Oh, just telling me stuff. And then next thing you know, the next person joined in, and we're all experiencing it, but in different ways. And the next thing you know, the men were turning around going, oh, this is interesting. Tell me more. I can tell my wife about this. So I'm thinking, well, why does no one talk about it? It happens to everybody. It's life. So I thought, well, my good friend Becky, it'd be great to have a talk about this, because your job is, when what you're passionate about is understanding yourself and hormones, nutrition, what should we be putting in our bodies to be the best we can be. So hopefully at the end of this, we can accept that this is a way of life. Hormones happen, but we don't have to be controlled by them. And it's our intention that you can hopefully learn some ways to thrive no matter what is happening to you and in your cycle and in your environments. Does that sound good? Is this why you're here? Just want to check. So a little bit about us. So I'll introduce myself, and then Becky will tell a little bit about herself. So my name is Susan Greatbanks, and I'm the founder of a company called Show the Light Limited. And my passion is people. So probably the best way I can explain that a bit better is by telling you a little story. About 10 years ago, I was working in a company managing 10, 20 people. And we was playing a little game going, what is your superpower? And I'm like, oh God, I ain't got time for this. I'm busy. And it came around to me, and I'm like, I don't know. I haven't got a superpower. And then someone said, yes, you do. You've got one right now. Look, well, what is it? And they said, your superpower is seeing the potential in people and helping bring it out of them. And I was like, wow, really? Is that what you think? Because for me, I didn't even know I did that. It's just something, I'm so interested in people, and I want the best for people. And I do see the greatness in people. And I always thought, as a manager, that's our job, isn't it? Is that not our job, to see the best in people and help them along their journey to be the best they can be? And that's one thing I've realized over time, is that what sometimes is effortless for someone is not effortless for others. And if it is effortless to you, you don't seem to see it or value it. Fast forward 10 years, I then discovered something called DISC personality profiling tool. And you know what? This tool is magic. It really helps you understand yourself, what your qualities are, what your strengths are, what you're good at. And it really helps you understand what your superpower is. So that was my light bulb moment. I thought, wow, this is how I can help people. This is how I can help people find their superpower and accept themselves. So this is how Show the Light was formed. And you know what? I couldn't imagine doing anything else. So that's why I'm here. How about you, Becky?
I suppose I came to my own light bulb moment, and oftentimes it takes like real downtimes in your life to push you towards these epiphanies. So I'm Becky Jones. I founded Elements of Nutrition, when I was suffering with stress and depression and all of the ailments that kind of came with it, and realized that there were so many changes that I needed to make, not just in terms of my mindset, but also how I was treating my body and mind, physically, spiritually, emotionally, all of that kind of stuff. And I really did just end up making a few basic changes to my diet, my exercise, and the way that I talk to myself, I suppose. And my epiphany was that after 6 months of doing these things, that I had radically turned my life around and how I was feeling and the symptoms that I was expressing. And I thought, if I can do this, given how bad things were, then surely I can help other women to do this. So I helped to figure out the root causes of people's ailments. So specifically women, and figure out what's going on biochemically, kind of hormonally, in terms of their microbiome, suss out what's happening for them. But I also now look at the root causes of the root causes. So why we do the things that we do to our body and mind, based on our kind of programming from early years. So yeah, absolutely fascinating, and I love it so much.
Thank you. That's great. So some people want to know how we met, why we're doing this together. So we went to school together quite a few years ago, and we got reintroduced together at the 25-year reunion. Something I didn't think I'd go to, and I actually didn't go to, but I just picked out a few people. I thought, these are the people I want to reconnect with. And then a few years later, I think I must have had a bit of an episode, a bit of a hormonal episode, I don't know what you want to call it, but I started at work. I am a professional person, got to really high up positions, and all of a sudden I felt out of control. I was sending shouty emails to people, like when people write capital letters, that's a taboo thing. You do not write emails in capital letters. I was shouting and ranting, and I realized I was like massively reacting rather than being calm and responding. That's my program state. And I actually felt like an alien had taken over my body. So I went to the doctors and had my bloods taken and found out I was in perimenopause. I'm like, what the fuck is that? What the hell is this? What is going on? So I looked into it a little bit, and I thought, what? I know someone who could really help me with this. And this is when I picked up the phone to you and went, Becky, just help me. You know what I mean? And you helped me really become more aware of what I was putting inside my body and how I was treating my body. And you really helped me with so much, because one thing I wanted to do is look, change your lifestyle. What is going on? Because one thing's for sure in this world, your hormones are there forever, but they don't have to control you. You know what I mean? They don't have to, there's a way that we can live in harmony with our hormones.
Absolutely.
So yes, that's how I met, and this is why I must have had I think I had an episode in January, and I thought, great, I think if it's happening to us, what better way is to talk about this with each other, to maybe let other people know it's happening, and there's you don't have to live with this. And this is why I love doing podcasts with people, because I think two topics of conversation and just having stories and interaction just a little bit more interesting, I think. Hopefully you guys do too. So what we want to talk about first is what we're calling knowing your baseline. Who are you at your normal level? Who do you want to be? Who are you at your best when you've got high energy levels? And then who are you when you've got your low energy levels? So what I want to talk about first is DISC personality profiling. And again, I'll just tell you a little bit of story about this. So have you ever wondered, why some people you're just naturally drawn to You know, everything feels effortless, your energies are drawn to each other, you just get on, everything's wonderful, you just click. And then those other people who, no matter what you do, you just clash. You know, no matter how hard you try, shouting louder, you know, try more and more to explain, you just don't get on, and you just don't know why. And these people just seem to irritate you. And you know what? Sometimes these people could be your family members, you know, friends. You know, it's not always work, because work, you think you've got to, you know, it's work, you just got to put up with them. Sometimes these people are your people closest to you. But did you know that through dispersonality profiling, you start to understand that people aren't difficult, they're just different. And that we tend to communicate in our own style, our own preference. And that's when we start to get frustrated, when people just aren't understanding you. No matter what you're doing, people just aren't understanding you, they just don't get you. So another example I could give, and this happens possibly in most households, it's about the washing up. You know, when you've had your dinner, someone does the washing up. Now, I was a person, you know, who had to get the washing up done first, you know, before I could relax. And then my husband was a person who needed to relax before he could get the job done. You know, he deserved, no, I'm going to relax for a few hours. The washing up can wait. You know, that's a task that doesn't need to happen just yet. Well, that used to wind me up. And just something so simple as understanding, just, you know, some people prefer to play before they do the job. Some people need to do the job before they can play, relax. And once you start understanding, you know, personality profiles, you can start to appreciate that, you know, and just accept people rather than getting frustrated and irritated about these little simple things in your life. When you start to understand who you are and what your preferences are, all those irritants just start to melt away. And all of a sudden you feel like calmness comes, and you start to understand each other and appreciate each other's differences rather than getting frustrated. And then if you add hormones into the mix of that, you know, sometimes where it's mildly irritating, or it's not bothering me tonight. If you dial up that preference or that irritant, which sometimes hormones can do, they can make you a little bit more impatient. All of a sudden, you know, arguments might start to happen. I know that happening, you know, you just get a little bit more frustrated. Your tolerance levels seem to be there as much. I hope this is resonating with people, because I'm sure this washing up argument happens in every household. So this is because that we think what we think is the most normal thing to do for us. We think that other people, why don't they just get it? What's wrong with them? And this is what dispersonality profiling helps you, really. It helps you to understand yourself. It helps you to understand other personality preference styles. And all of a sudden you start accepting people. And when you start accepting people and understanding your hormone imbalance, you realize when you are reacting instead of responding. So yeah, so that's understanding your baseline and how dispersonality profiling can help you. And would you like to talk more about when you know you're being triggered?
So when you know you're being triggered, as in what the hormones are coming into play more than usual.
Your normal balance of life doesn't seem to be happening. Yeah, when you're going out of normal balance.
Yeah, well, it changes throughout the month, obviously, and we have times when there are certain hormones higher than others, and this can really change the way that we respond or react to things. So there are normal kind of rise and fall, kind of ebbs and flows in our female hormones. But in that premenstrual time, so that last kind of quarter of our cycle, we tend to get real big highs and lows of estrogen. And it's during that time when we can either be lovely, super calm, creative, and be in our best selves, and then moments later, literally moments later, surge of hormones means that we are on edge, irritable, moody, overreactive, and it's not something that we can always plan for. Those brief moments when we're out of balance, but we can prevent and kind of plan for that part of our cycle as a whole. So what can we do in terms of like reducing that reactivity? Is that what you meant?
Yeah, it's just, I think one thing is accepting it, that there is a ebb and flow in, you know, whatever the trigger is, there is an ebb and flow. Maybe recognizing what some of the symptoms might be, so you can start checking in with yourself. Just explain what could be some internal feelings that you might be feeling, and what then could be some external observable. I can't say the word observable. I can't say it, just forget about it.
Yeah.
What other people can see. What things other people can see.
Okay, so in an ideal world, we want to be recording where we're at in our cycle at all times, and then we can play to our strengths, and we can be kind to ourselves at those times when our body really needs it. So if you're aware of where you're at in the cycle, you can really make the most of those times when we are more energized. So during that first quarter of our cycle, so from like day one of your period onwards, we are kind of coming out of that period stage when we really need to be resting and just kind to ourselves, and relatively insular, and just being still as much as possible, and nourishing our body with the nutrients that it needs for energy, so your B12 and your iron and things like that. And during that kind of first quarter of the cycle, though, we are ramped up, our energy is high, we are outgoing, we are just our most fabulous version of ourselves before we start to ovulate. So this pre-ovulation stage. And then we need to kind of plan all of our stuff for during that time, if we can at all help it. So those times when we are going to need to be our best selves in terms of energy. And in that kind of second quarter, we become more kind of nurturing and more outgoing. So we want to be like in groups, we want to be networking, we want to be working with our family, we want to be doing stuff with other people. So this is a time when we can kind of plan all of our community type stuff, if you will. And then as we return back to the PMS stage that I've mentioned there, we need to get into our creativity more. So we need to harness that side of us where we are in the run up to these changes during our cycle. So I've got a little diagram here as a reminder for me. So that kind of ovulation stage, we're coming out of that, and we are going to start having these more swings in our reactivity, in our emotional state. So we actually, you know, the triggers that you mentioned, this is us looking out for stuff, a heightened awareness to other people's kind of moods, to their words, to the things that they do. We're just becoming more observant, and instead of treating that as like something to react to, like you're saying with the disc profile, just observing it, kind of seeing how it sits with you and figuring things out. So it's our time to kind of work things through and work things out, and use that in a more kind of creative direction, rather than being reactive all the time. So do you want me to talk about what kind of things we can do in terms of our diet and stuff to regulate it?
Yeah, definitely, because it all makes sense to me, because I remember, you know, exercise to me is really important. It's really good it helps, you know, de-stress after work. It helps me, just de-stress. And I know exercise is important. And I used to there's always felt like a week of the month that I had the energy and the desire to do it. And then all of a sudden it'd leave me. It was like, became a drain, a drag. I'd have to force myself. And I didn't know what that was. I just thought, oh, I can't stick to anything. And it just makes more sense now when you understand your, you know, your peak, you know, your energy levels, and then your energy levels just dip. You know, that's not really, you know. And then I remembered I wanted to meet up with my friends more.
Yeah.
I mean, because my friends used to tell me, you know, you are the most sociable person I know. I'm like, I don't understand what that means. You know, when you're out with us once a month,
Yep.
it all makes sense now.
Yeah, of course
So
it
you're
does.
engaging, but then you just kind of retreat a little bit. I'm like, and you just don't know why you're just behaving this way. And I think understanding your cycle and all, and how your hormones are, it makes you actually, it's another piece of the puzzle. Do you know what I mean? Of
Yeah.
why you do what you do.
Yeah, definitely. And having some awareness around it. And so logging it each month, month in, month out, because we're not identical. We all do have kind of fluctuations kind of between us as well. And knowing where you're at and what usually happens at that stage. So like you say, you're really outgoing at this stage, or at these times you need to rest, and just really helps us planning things. So in terms of exercise, we can use that first quarter of our cycle to do our really high intensity stuff, our HIIT training, our sports, our whatever is our high energy kind of workout. And then in the other parts of the cycle, yes, we still need to exercise, but it's doing something that might nourish you in a different way. So because we're into community, that midpoint when we're ovulating in our cycle, is doing more teams things. Obviously at the moment that's a struggle, but doing something that involves other people is really important at that stage. And then as you're coming up to the that period part of your cycle, doing something more restful. So it may be just more gentle exercise. So you might be doing more yoga because our hormones kind of change our level of flexibility and all of those things. So yoga, Pilates, all of that kind of lower key, lower impact stuff still helps to regulate our hormones and keeps our mood lifted, but it's more gentle on the body. And then literally during that period of time, do not put any pressure on yourself to exercise. Just do the bare minimum. That's what your body wants. It wants you to be nice and still. And what you'll find is if you listen to your body and you are still during those times, things like the huge food cravings, so this desire to eat loads and loads and loads, and that will naturally quell as well, because your body's like, oh yeah, she's listening to me. I don't need to power through all this. I don't need all the carbs and sugars and things to kind of give me that energy that I'm so desperately craving at the moment. So it helps in that respect. In terms of the food, during that premenstrual time is a period of inflammation. So we are in a high inflammatory state, which has an impact on our hormones and vice versa. And so constantly throughout our cycle, eating to reduce inflammation is really going to help in so many ways. So that's essentially cutting out the bad stuff and including loads of the good stuff. So more veggies, less crud. That will help us throughout. But during that key time when we're about to come on our period, having things like vitamin D as a mood lifter, magnesium, that's your kind of anti-stress mineral. It relaxes all your muscles, prevents all the kind of cramping and things that people can get, reduces that irritability, those mood swings, that snappiness, because you're essentially just feeling more chilled. And then combining that with calcium means that you're going to sleep better through the night as well. And when we sleep better, obviously we're less irritable, less moody, and we can cope with the demands on us far, far better when we've had a good night's kip. And so those are the key ones. Vitamin B6 is really, really important as well. And that is our hormone stabilizer. It helps us manufacture the things that we need for good hormone health. And then what I do with my clients is we use seed cycling. So we increase the amounts of certain types of seeds so that we can regulate our progesterone and estrogen through the cycle.
And we're going to hear, you just give us a few hints and tips. But there's so much to talk about here. We couldn't fit all this in one session. So in our next session, we're going to tell more. You're going to tell us more about the checklist. You know, get your sleep, hydration, diet, nutrients. You know, looking at our workloads. But could you just quickly tell us? You know, we talked about track your cycle.
Yeah.
What is it you meant by that?
So whether you use a journal or a diary or an app or Fitbit, whatever you use to log what's happening in your cycle, make sure that you do that methodically. So it can be, some of us get like a little twinge, some kind of feeling when we ovulate. So that's worth noting in the diary. And some of us kind of get warning signs. So our tender breasts, low in energy, hormonal acne. We might get something that tells us outwardly to other people that we're about to start that. So making a note of anything like that, making a note of any emotional changes during your cycle as well, so the stuff that we've talked about, and seeing how long your cycle lasts, how heavy it is, whether you experience any other symptoms. So doing that so that you know and you can predict in the future what's likely to happen for you, and spotting those signs really early will help you respond rather than react, because you know it's down to hormones.
Yeah, and it's all coming up with a pattern. So today, for example, just before this call, yesterday I noticed I just started to become a bit weepy. I thought about something and I reacted. I'm like, then you go, whoa, where's that coming from? And then today a little bit, and I thought, oh, I'm going to track that because this is unusual. And it's being, if you know yourself and understand yourself and recognise, oh, that's unusual, be curious. What I'm inviting you to be, just be curious a little bit. What's going on? Why did this happen? And make a note of it. And even today, just a couple of things happened. I stubbed my toe, don't we all? But I noticed how I was reacting to it. It got a little bit irritable. I'm like, so a little bit weepy, plus today a little bit irritable. I'm like, interesting. Let's have a look. Beware, people, for the next few days. But then I'll probably go, I might not have a conversation with that person till a few weeks' time. Do you know what I mean? And that's what we're all here to do today, isn't it? Just recognise the symptoms and help put some strategies in place. So that's it for today. We hope it has been interesting, and we hope you are finding it interesting and we can help you. So listen in to the next one, because Becky's going to give you lots of hints and tips and we talk about it some more. Thank you. Thanks, Becky.
Thank you.